Hello and welcome to Survivor Social. This is the Survivor podcast where we discuss and disentangle Survivor with the focus on the social elements of the game. My name is Tegwyth, and my usual co-host David is unfortunately out today, but we have a very special guest discussing today's episode with me, my friend who I cannot wait to form a nerdy alliance with on Survivor, Ian Sandridge. Ian, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I have work off, which is great. I always have my Sundays off, and it's like amazing to talk Survivor as always. It's like the only thing I'm like going on in my life outside of school. So like I'm super excited to finally be on a podcast and talk about like this game that we all love and just know so much about.
So excited to talk to you about this. Why don't you can you tell us a little bit about what got you into Survivor, and why you are here, ready to nerd out about Survivor with me?
So I was not like I didn't watch from the beginning. I mean, I'm as old as the show, if you can believe it. Like that's crazy to think of out loud. Like I'm 23 years old. I was born in 1999. Like I'm as old as the show. And so like obviously I wasn't watching it from the beginning. Like and so the first season I remember like casually tuning into was Blood versus Water. And the first like big moment for me was seeing Sierra vote out her mom. Like that was a huge thing. I was like, oh my gosh, like what is going on? Then I saw the rock draw. Like that was a crazy moment, like in watching Survivor. And I had no idea that it was like half returning players and whatnot. And then like, I just kind of like kept like in the know, but I wasn't really watching as many seasons. But like the first season I watched live was Winners at War, which I was super excited about. And so like and and then with the pandemic I was able to like binge all of it, but like I had been binging most of it from like after, before Winners at War, because I wanted to see like what every winner's game was going to be before the season aired.
I mean, that's a pretty good first live season right there. Winners at War is pretty awesome. So make sure to stay tuned to the end of the episode. We do have some really fun listener questions that we're going to get into later on in the episode, but I think it's about time. Let's just dive right in to this week's episode. So we start this week at Tika Beach right after the vote out, which I am always a huge fan of. I love to see the immediate reaction, which was just jaw dropping, specifically for Jam Jam, obviously. How did you feel the episode started? How did you feel about that whole scene, going into the episode?
I mean, I love a good post-tribal like breakdown, and then people like coming to one another be like, what the hell just happened? Like what were you thinking? And I love seeing like, people just kind of drop their game for a minute and just like talk openly with one another, because in the game of Survivor, people usually keep stuff so close to their chest, and because in these small tribes, you can't really like go off and talk by yourself, which is why I liked that they were having this open discussion kind of as much as they could. And it was very funny to me seeing Jam Jam be like, "Why did you leave me out of the vote?" And I was like, "Dude," the whole time I was like, "Jam Jam, you're still here. Like, why are you so mad about this?" And it's one of those instances where like I understand you want to be in on the vote every single time, but if you're left out of a vote, as long as you're not being voted out, you really shouldn't be freaking out as much as Jam Jam was. And I thought Carolyn did a really good job of defending herself and saying, like, I never felt comfortable with Sarah here. I was always the third turd, as she said in that alliance, which, episode title, of course, from Carolyn, which was amazing. And then, just seeing, all of them kind of seeing Jam Jam and Carolyn really clash, because it makes their relationship even more dynamic than what we knew.
Absolutely. And it's very interesting you say that, because Jam Jam did say over and over again that he was like, I'm so happy I'm here. I'm so happy I survived the vote, but I just wish I would have known. I wish you would have told me. I would have voted with you. I don't know that he would have. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
I don't think, if you think about it, obviously hindsight is 2020. In retrospect, he would have been like, yeah, I'd be fine with whatever as long as I was in on the vote. But I really don't think that he actually would have voted. I feel like he would have tried to figure out a way to maneuver around. So I think, Carolyn doing what she did for her game, I think was the right way to do that. And then it's interesting. We'll talk about this later in the episode, but seeing how Josh Jam Jam brings up how Carolyn kind of played Josh, I think that was a very interesting thing. But I thought Jam Jam handled it fine. I think he was so shocked and he was so used to being in on a lot of the stuff that this kind of being on the other side of the blind side or the
Hmm.
vote really kind of put him off balance a little bit. But I'm so happy you brought up third turd. I'm pretty sure this is the third title that she's gotten.
I
Carolyn
mean,
has gotten.
what more can you ask for? Carolyn is just television gold. She's a gold mine of sound bites. Like, just an amazing character, an amazing player to me all around. Like, every time I'm watching her, I am glued to the screen. That's why this episode was so stressful for me
Oh
because I
my
was
gosh,
like,
I
if
know.
I literally said I was on Twitter. I was like, when Josh and Jam Jam, like this is going a little earlier. Like when Josh was like, we just voted her out. I was like, keep Carolyn's name out of your
Yep.
mouth. Don't
Yes.
talk about her. Like, I felt
Don't
like
do
Will
it.
Smith at the Oscars. Like I wanted to smack Josh across the face and be like, keep my wife's name out of your mouth. Because I still think like if we had lost Carolyn this episode, I think the season would have like gone down
Mhm.
really bad. Like it would have dropped into entertainment value for me personally.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think she is great with the way that she talks, the way that she reacts to things, just so much stuff. Amazing casting. And I would be absolutely devastated if Carolyn went out at all in this episode. I'm really happy she made the merge.
Hmm.
Um, I also wanted to talk about Carolyn said there was a confessional where she was saying that Carolyn wanted to move forward with Jam Jam. That's what her heart is telling her. Her heart was that she wanted to stick with Jam Jam, but she is a really good strategic player. She does know what she wants to do isn't necessarily what she needs to do. And so she
Hmm.
was like, at that point, she was feeling like Josh was the best way forward for her in the overall game. And I thought that was very interesting to hear somebody saying, like, I know that this is what I want, but right
Hmm.
now it might not be best for me. And I like hearing the kind of the fight within her on like what want versus need, because I too would want to keep Jam Jam in.
Yeah, and obviously her being like, oh, like, like as she's like, like, what do I do? And I'm just like, it's just, she's just vocalizes how she feels. Like her brain, it's like, how people say like there's diarrhea of the mouth. Like I think Carolyn has diarrhea of the emotions. Like she just like she can't contain how she feels, and she has to vocalize it in a way like whether that's like inaudible or like unintelligible screams and like
Yeah.
like sounds. And I'm just like thinking like, how do you write this as a caption? Like I don't know how to
That's
write
so
this.
funny. That is
That's
so
why I'm like
funny.
you. That's why I'm sometimes like you can't script this show because I'm like, what is Carolyn's like? What are the words that are coming out of Carolyn's mouth when she's making these sounds?
Yeah, it's pretty. She, like I said, she's an incredible casting. Just we need somebody like this as
We're gonna
often as.
be give. She has so much flowers like to give her, and like
Yeah,
we definitely have like. But there's other people that we need to talk about on the show. Of course, it's not
I
just gonna be the
guess.
Carolyn episode.
I
As
guess.
much
I
as it
guess.
is the Carolyn episode, we're like, we have other people we need to talk about.
True. And that being said, let's move over to Ratu Beach. So the next part, we move over to Ratu Beach, and we immediately start with Matthew talking to Kane about how much pain he is in. Matt's shoulder, obviously, he fell off the rock in episode 2, and he's starting off by talking about how much pain is in, how much pain he is in, and that he trained so much for this, and it's so hard to not really be able to enjoy it to the extent because he is in so much pain all the time. Kane then talks about how impressed he is with Matthew. I believe he calls him a gladiator at some point, which I think is a very cool and very works for this season because of the sword and the shield. But a very nice, obviously nice thing to say about somebody. Very hard to watch somebody, obviously living their dream, built a plywood thing in his backyard. Hard to see him going through all this pain to play the game that he loves.
Yeah, it's definitely, we always hear about like the hunger and whatnot and the starvation and like, like how hard it is out there, at least in the older seasons. They don't really talk about it now, which is like one of my
Jeff
gripes with
still
it.
does. Jeff still
Jeff does.
absolutely. Jeff talks about how hard it is. It's so hard. Look how hard it is. Like nothing is ever harder, ever, ever.
Yeah, I'm sure. That's why Chanel from season 42 said we didn't have a fire for days and we were fine. Like, yeah, it's so hard, Jeff. But anyways, yeah, it was a really nice moment to just kind of, see someone opening up about how they're feeling and like their pain and whatnot. Because in the game of Survivor, and especially as we've seen, like tribe strength seems to be this thing. And seeing Matthew last this long as someone who has been in pain and still being valued as somebody is definitely like something to like that is worth something. And it definitely shows that like people still care about him for the most part. I mean, the people that we see like him talking to are Kane and Carson specifically. And I definitely want to talk like move, because what happens to Matthew in this episode is a real bummer. It's like true shame. I can't imagine how that feels. It must be devastating to be medically evacuated, like especially if this is your dream. But we slowly move on to like this, all out geek out fest with Carson and Kane, which was definitely interesting to watch. But for me, I was like, Carson and Kane are on two different ends of the spectrum of nerd to me. Like Kane is playing tabletop games while Carson's like, I've seen all the Marvel movies. I know all about them. Like Carson makes me think of like the nerd that's like he says he's a nerd, but he's never picked up a comic book in his life.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they were calling, or I heard somebody call it the Geek Squad. I don't know if this was Kane or somebody, but a very interesting like dynamic this was where I think somebody even said that like Carson being in this tribe brings a very interesting dynamic into the tribe. And I think Carson is very well situated. I think he did a very good job at ingratiating himself or really being in on this tribe. I know Matthew feels comfortable with him. Obviously, Kane feels good with him. I don't know about the other people in the tribe, but I do think that those two relationships. Obviously, Matthew is no longer in the game, but I do think that it makes Kane feel a little bit better because Kane felt so by himself for such a long time because of the vote with Maddie. You know. So I think adding Carson into the mix is very interesting, makes it for an interesting dynamic.
I mean, I can definitely understand where you're coming from, but like for me, I'm very doubtful of Carson's actual position in the tribe, just because, as he said himself, everyone's sharing so much information with me. And I was like, everyone? Because I don't see Brandon or Lauren talking to you at all. So I don't think, and when you're in a tribe of five, like, I guess, he's like, oh, well, I have two people sharing information with me. That's a majority. Like, it doesn't matter. But I mean, I have no idea what Lauren and Brandon's perception of Carson is at all. And like, maybe Carson thinks, oh, because I'm good with these two, I'm good with everybody. So it may be like a little short sighted on his part, but we don't know because Ratu has been like is an enigma. I have no idea what this tribe's dynamics are. And I think, it's I think it's on the editors, but I also think it's because it's that predicament where when the tribe wins so many immunity challenges, there's so little to show. But I also think it's because this tribe probably doesn't have that many internal conflicts with one another. So
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. I think the only time we've really seen a bunch of Ratu was episode 1, when we had that wild tribal. And other than that, we didn't really see much. We had to get a little bit of Jamie's background because Jamie obviously was going to end up being swapped at some point. So we have that to go off of. But that is very true. We don't know much about Ratu, and I don't really know much of their dynamic. I honestly have no idea where Lauren stands at all. Whereas I feel like I have a kind of an idea of where Brandon stands in terms of the tribe versus the greater sense, which we'll get to a little bit later. But yeah, I think that's a very good point where we're not seeing the full picture on Ratu.
yeah.
But it is, I think it's something to be said about somebody who feels comfortable even if they might not be in a comfortable position. So I think Carson, he kept saying he feels comfortable. I feel comfortable. Or I not maybe not comfortable might not be the position. He said he feels like I'm in the right position. Um, and I think that could lead to an interesting merge where if he feels like he's good with the two tribes that he's been on, then maybe that'll lead to some interesting dynamics between, those two tribes, or Carson maybe having to choose a side, whatever it is. I think it'll lead to some interesting social dynamics between those two, just because he feels like he's in a good position. Whereas I think if he
Oh,
felt like he was in a bad position, it would be a totally different story.
yeah, I absolutely agree. Like, I think, there's so much that could happen come the merge. We don't really know. And I think, you know, one of my gripes with the Ratu tribe, especially with this episode and Matthew being medically evacuated, it's one of those instances where it's like, I don't understand why you gave Matthew such a big edit on this tribe when, you know, as everybody knows, when the season's done, that's when they edit. So to me, it's like I understand he's kind of this big player on this tribe, but for such a big player to be medically evacuated, you should be giving screen time to the other players that are going to hopefully be remaining in the game longer than him or remaining in the game longer than like Carson, for instance. But we don't know. That's why like it's a little frustrating to me, but like I still enjoyed Matthew, of course. But I'm always like, you need to give other people time to speak. But Survivor is all about storytelling, and every season tells a certain story. Some better than others.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a good point. We when they knew he was going to be medically evacuated, it wasn't a big move. It wasn't anything. Or I think it's technically not even a medical evac. I think it's technically a quit, because which I think is
I
ridiculous.
I
Which I think
wouldn't
is
call it a
ridiculous.
quit.
I wouldn't call it a quit either, but if you hear Jeff's words, he never once said like, he has to be pulled out, which I think is like not important the way we view the season, but the way the producers and everyone and like Jeff views his exit, which I think is more in terms of like the greater scheme of things. Like, and I don't think that's fair, but I do think that that's kind of how the producers are seeing his exit, which I think is a little silly
I
because
think that's ridiculous. Personally, I'm just like, yeah, Jeff, yeah, I'm sure you as a healthy individual man right now are like, wow, he's such a quitter. It's like, yeah, let's maybe dislocate your shoulder, Jeff, and see how
yeah,
you feel. Like,
yeah.
come on, you're not out there starving, dehydrated, and whatnot. So like, I would say this is like a pulled from the game for medical
Hmm.
reasons, but like, it's not quite the same as Bruce's, of course.
Right, right. Okay, so next we go to Soka Beach. We start off by seeing Danny leading a sunrise breathing workshop. Danny talks about how much he loves jujitsu and how they're all silly little gooses on the island and all of that breathing. I thought that was a very interesting way to start off seeing Soka on this episode. All of that breathing to really, harness yourself. Um,
I'm sorry. That whole scene, I was just like, oh my God, like I would not be a good fit for this tribe at all. Like, you cannot get me to do meditation. I have ADHD. Like, my mind is racing all the time. Like, I can't, like, the only reason I can sit in one place is if I'm sleeping or I'm like, if I'm exhausted. But like, them doing this, like, let's like have like our breathing exercises and whatnot, and like when they were doing like with Franny, it's like, and I was just like thinking this the entire time, it's like I would probably just wait for them to be so quiet and just sneak off and go do my own thing. I just wouldn't like, I was like, I'm not into the whole meditation thing. I'm not going to do it. Like, I don't enjoy it, but it's one of those things in Survivor where it's like, I don't know how into everybody this meditation and breathing stuff is, but you kind of have to blend in and go with like the social contract of the tribe in a sense.
yeah.
But I was just like, yeah, Danny, breathing is so interesting. It really clears my mind.
And it's so funny that you say that because I kind of agree with you. I feel like that is not what I would want to do. But Jamie, on the other hand, Jamie's like,
Hmm.
this is what she loves to do. She's a yogi. She loves to like do all of this stuff. So she feels like she is in the perfect tribe for her, and this is the tribe that she had wanted to be on the whole time because like she didn't have to teach the meditation. She could just meditate and breathe with everybody else. So it's very funny how you and I kind of agree where that is not my cup of tea, but Jamie is like, yes, please, more of this, which I think is super
Yeah.
interesting.
And Jamie was very interesting. I liked hearing from her perspective on this tribe, especially as someone, who is, an outsider. She got swapped over. Like these people don't really know her that well. And when she was talking about like I feel great on this tribe and whatnot, and I feel like and I have so much information to share. And when she's trying to talk to Matt and trying to be like, yeah, what do you think of like, being here and all that? She's like, oh, I just want to take it slow. And then she's like the way Matt like thinks like baffles me. Like she's like, I don't understand what he's doing. And was very much like on Jamie's side with this, and the like she's like, I just don't know what game he's playing. Like in Survivor, like people always say like just say yes, 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 yes. Like go with it, like do something. And if
Mhm.
I was in Matt's position, I'd be like, I want to get to know Jamie because I want to know what Ratu's like. I want to know what the dynamics
Mhm.
are over there because if I'm going to be making merge, I want to know who and who I cannot align with.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think it was a little awkward watching that conversation between Jamie and Matt because I felt like Matt wasn't really, in the conversation. He just kind of was skirting around the edge of talking about everything. And then another interesting aspect of this is then Jamie goes to Franny and is like, "What is Matt doing? Like, why is that? That doesn't seem right." And I guess Jamie hadn't picked up on the fact that they are a solid two, which I think props to them, maybe because if someone who's new to the tribe isn't totally seeing that those two are so close to each other, that is maybe they're taking a step back, like they were trying to. So I guess that's probably a good thing. But interesting that Jamie tells Franny that because then Franny goes right to Matthew and is like, this is what Jamie's thinking. So that was an interesting little like triangle of information that was happening about that one little conversation between Jamie and Matt.
Yeah, and I also liked that Franny at least gave Jamie like, I just think he's a really affable like player.
Hmm.
Like that's just how he is. Like he's very like shy and introverted. And then, we have the lovebirds of Franny and Matt just, having that really long, deep hug, just and I'm here for the showmance because we haven't seen one in so
I am
long. And
too. I am too.
I just think like if you're going to find love on Survivor, that's great because honestly, people that have found love on Survivor last longer than people on The Bachelor. And it's been like
That they
proven.
do.
And like, anytime people are like, oh, that's kind of gross. Like, I'm like, yeah, no, it totally is gross. Like falling in love on an island and being dirty and like making out or like, you know, and whatnot. But, you know, they haven't made out yet. We haven't seen it. So, but I definitely, this episode made me realize like, these two I think don't want to say they like each other to like in like to their faces, but like in confessional they're like, I really like Matt, I
Yeah.
really like Franny, like as Matt said, like if Franny's my blind spot, like i, I don't know, like and I was like,
It's
oh my
honestly so cute
gosh.
to watch just because it's like if I don't know, it's just so cute to watch just because they're
it's like
saying the exact
watching
same thing.
it's like watching two cats circle each other. They're just like, I don't know, like, what should I do? Like, I'm just, and then I also liked hearing the producer, like, are you blushing a little? And she's like,
I I
and I
loved
was
that.
like, that was so funny. I liked hearing that. And, just, it gives us some little like fourth wall break. Like, yeah, production's asking these like castaways questions and whatnot. So
Yeah, I
I,
loved
when, and then Franny brought up, yeah, we could go and get Ethiopian food. I was just like, where are you getting Ethiopian food? Like, I've never had Ethiopian food. And like, from what I've heard, is like, apparently, like, you eat it with your hands. So it's like, oh, okay. So, like, maybe it's like a more intimate, like, eating
ah,
experience or whatnot. But,
that's so funny.
maybe after this, I'll have to try some Ethiopian food because,
Absolutely.
Franny seems to like it and she wants to take Matt on a date to an Ethiopian
Oh.
restaurant.
It was just so cute. That whole thing was so cute. And then I love the producer fourth wall break so much. I love seeing all of that stuff because it doesn't really take you out of the game. It just to me, it adds a little bit of it's not spice, but we get a little bit of the like. These confessionals aren't just people talking to themselves. They're talking to somebody. They're having sometimes not really a conversation, but they're it's it's coming from somewhere. And
Yeah.
I think it grounds it a little bit more, grounds Survivor, grounds kind of what we're seeing. And so I thought that was a really cute, like little fourth wall break. I mean, we've gotten a bunch of them, and I'm a huge fan of them. So I loved that little tiny bit. But I thought it was what we saw on Soka. I thought was pretty interesting. Overall, we
Now
didn't
we
see
gotta.
Heidi.
No, we didn't, which was a shame, but
We didn't see Heidi.
now we gotta move on to like the crazy kookiness that is the Tika tribe, that like
Yep.
absolute fire content that we're getting from these people, like Josh versus Jam Jam, and then like he's like, like you don't have to be mad at me, and it's like I know, but I just don't trust you. Like,
Yep. It's so funny. They're so outright about it. They are so like, this is I know I don't have to like you, but or I don't have to trust you, or I don't trust you. Josh doesn't trust Jam Jam. Jam Jam doesn't trust Josh. They both told each other that. Um, and then we find out about the fake idol, another fake idol in the game.
that we'll talk about that. That is after the sanctuary, because that was very funny. I was just like,
Well, we
wow,
see
Josh is.
it. It's very Josh, honestly, good. I think it's a good move. But at this point, that's when this is when Josh shows the letter to Jam Jam, or maybe they just talk like, here's the
Yeah,
letter, here's the letter.
he showed Jam Jam the letter, but as we it gets pointed out earlier, like it's the same one from earlier. So all it would take for Jam Jam to realize, wait, is just to read the letter. But he
Yep.
probably I can't remember how long he was able to look at it, but maybe he was just like,
It's
it says like you have a hidden immunity idol, and it's like, okay, great. Like he's just like not he's not really reading in between the lines or
yeah,
reading the fine parchment.
yeah. Josh has to do what he has to do. It's a tribe of three. When you're in a tribe of
Mm.
three, you're just kind of clawing at the wall, see what you can kind of grab onto and what'll stick. And so,
Yeah.
gave it the good college try. Good try for that. Um, but then we kind of get a little bit more personal with Jam Jam and Josh. We go a little bit deeper. They
Hmm.
Josh asked Jam Jam about his coming out story, and we get to hear a little bit about that, and then vice versa with Josh. Very big bonding moment, obviously on a tribe of three, where any kind of interpersonal connection matters a ton, and this is something that really really bonds the two of them together.
I think it was something that like bonds them in a way more like they see each other as people more, but like I don't know if it really bonded them like strategically or like
Hmm.
whatnot. That like I don't think either one of them came from that conversation. Like I won't write Josh's name down. Like it wasn't that like deep and
That's true.
meaningful. I think in that sense of like, oh, like I really get this person, we get each other and whatnot. And
Hmm.
what I liked about this, sharing their coming out stuff is how Jam Jam gave us a perspective. Like he's like, oh, I just never thought I was pretty. Like I never thought like I was good looking. So like, and then when he talks about he's like, my first boyfriend was my husband and now we're married and whatnot. And I thought that was really sweet. And I liked hearing Josh's coming out story because I definitely empathized with, I didn't come out until after I graduated high school. And then like I went to a college outside of my hometown because I was like, I don't want to be here. Not because of that, but also it was just like, I'm sick and tired of being where I've lived for like 19
Hmm.
years. So that like that's what I did. But I definitely was like, I came out, but like where I lived was like not the most accepting. So I wanted to move somewhere else where I felt like I'd be more accepted. And that's what I did. But um, my only gripe with this scene is the fact that Tika is made completely up of queer people. And in Survivor, we've seen a lot of gay men share like, their experiences with coming out or like how they feel as a gay person. Like we saw in 42, Hai and Romeo talking about their sexuality and like how Romeo's like, I never came out to my family and whatnot,
Hmm.
having that deep personal connection. But Carolyn's a queer woman as well. And I've noticed like throughout the years of Survivor and like many seasons that I've seen, like we don't talk about like queer women's stories as much.
Hmm.
Like the first two openly queer women I can think of on Survivor are from Vanuatu, Amy and
Hmm.
Scout, and you don't know that they're queer until their loved ones show up, which is like crazy to me. And especially like, even back then, like that's crazy because the first season has an openly gay man on it. It's like
Hmm.
this is not new material. This is not a new thing that's been discussed on Survivor. But it's definitely something I've been thinking of because I want to because both Franny and Claire are queer women, and
Hmm.
what did they have any conversations about that? I definitely want to see more queer women's stories on Survivor because we see so many queer men's stories on Survivor. And I think it's one of those instances where, yes, we have the diversity initiative and whatnot. And I like that we've been getting more queer women and queer men as well. But I want to be seeing these queer women's stories.
Yeah, I think very well said. Firstly, and secondly, yeah, I totally I noticed that, and I think one thing I wish that even just would be mentioned at some point is that I wish on this show they would have mentioned it's a tribe full of queer LGBTQ plus people. Like that is something that has, correct me if I'm wrong, has never happened. Just a full tribe of queer people, I think is very first time, and I don't, it hasn't been mentioned on the show. It's only been mentioned on like podcasts and off to the side. But I wish that was something that would have been brought up at some point, just actually on the television screen, because it's pretty historic and really cool. And especially now that the merge is coming, it's no, the tribe isn't going to be a tribe anymore, obviously. So they really only had a short period of time in which to say it. But yeah, I think that's a really great point. And I do think that the moment was just so very, nice and humanizing. And like that's the thing I think in Survivor that we see a good amount of time, but I think that like it wasn't like a forced story, where it's like
Yeah.
this is Brandon was here how he was saying like, oh, I do a lot of stuff. And then that felt like a forced, story about Brandon, whereas this was natural. This was two people talking, bonding over a campfire, really getting to know each other.
Hmm.
And that's what I love in Survivor. And that's what I think this episode did really, really well. Overall,
Yeah.
they showed connections this episode so well. And not just this, that we'll talk about the sanctuary a little bit later. We'll talk about, we've already talked about just the way that Matthew and Kane were bonding, and just all of this stuff I think is so wonderful to see on a screen, because is that is what drives the gameplay, right? Strategy comes is a huge part of Survivor. Obviously, it is the part of Survivor. That's Survivor strategy, but it's all built on a social base. It's all, the strategy doesn't work unless you have good people surrounding you that you can trust. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. I mean, I would say, Survivor at its core has always been, the people make the game, but this season it's been a little different, in my opinion, where I feel like the game is playing the
mhm.
players. But this episode was really refreshing to see. Like, there was no twists, there was no advantages, which is what we saw, after the immunity challenge, was I think we like, you guys don't usually talk about the immunity challenge too much.
Yeah,
Like,
no.
but the one thing I would like to point out is that when Tika was walking back in, Soko was going for the Academy Award, be like, oh my gosh, Josh is still there. Like, oh my gosh, we're so happy. He's like, they were pulling, like, oh my gosh, like, gasp. Like, they were like, oh my gosh, we're
Absolutely.
so happy you're still here. And like, Josh definitely was like bought into it. And I was like, oh
Hmm.
my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. I also, there were two things at the immunity challenge that I wanted to talk about. First thing I wanted to talk about that I think is just hysterical. It's editing. It has nothing to do with social or strategy or whatever. But I don't know if y'all have noticed this. When they pull the sword out of anywhere, they
Hmm.
do a sword sound effect.
Shing,
It is it that
shing.
that looks like a plastic sword, Jeffrey. Jeffrey, that's a plastic sword. Why are we wooden at best? Why are we making a shing sound? It's the
And a
funniest thing.
sword should never make that sound when it comes out of a holster
It
because then it just dulls the sword. But like, Survivor's got to do what it's got to do. This is why, like, I always say to people that, like, to my gay friends and whatnot who watch reality TV and watch RuPaul's Drag Race and whatnot, I'm like, please give Survivor a chance because it is campy. It is over the top. No matter what, like, even if the players aren't over the top, like the idea, like you're being voted out. Like you're going off the like that stuff is like ridiculous. But like, that's why we love this show so much because this is like an experiment, but that has evolved and become like a phenomenon and like a
Mhm.
sensation. But like, even at times, like it knows it's silly, and I like that it's being silly
Me
at
too.
times.
Me too. I was obsessed with it. It makes me happy, and I thought that was wonderful. The
I
other thing
also
I
love
wanted
how
to,
the contestants are like fully like, knight me, Jeff. Like, yes, I'm so happy I have the shield. And like a lot of people online have been like, I think this is the worst immunity idol ever with the sword and shield.
that is so
And I'm
funny because
just
I'm obsessed with it. I'm obsessed with it.
but
It's just so like
yeah.
ridiculous. It's so ridiculous, and that's kind of why I love
Yeah.
it. Because I loved the immunity idol on Pearl Islands, where with the sword,
Yes.
the individual immunity, where it was just like a swashbuckler sword. I love that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Just go all in on that. That to me is just
Yeah.
makes me happy. I think it's silly and fun and 10 out of 10. The
Yeah.
other thing I wanted to talk about from the immunity idol or the immunity challenge is something that I saw on the internet. I think I saw this on Survivor Fact Checker's Instagram story. So apparently, ever since Claire and I think it was Matthew talked after the first episode, first
Oh,
challenge
I think
on
I heard about this.
the benches have been getting further and further apart. And so after I saw this, when I rewatched the
Ooh.
episode, the benches are so far away. They're so far away. And I am wondering if there obviously might be a practicality of like literally they wanted the benches to be by the tribe, like where they're going or whatever. But also, like, why would they discourage from the cross tribe talking? That is great gameplay, in my opinion. That is great television. I think that just makes everything a little bit better. When Claire did that, she almost got Lauren voted out of the episode. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because of that like whole bit. And so I was wondering, did you notice that? And do you have any thoughts about that?
I didn't notice it at first, but then I did see that post that you were talking about. And, I mean, we just came off of watching Survivor Heroes versus Villains on Australian Survivor, and there was so many cross-tribal match chats that season, and it made so much interesting gameplay and so much interesting television. Like seeing people just like openly share information with one another, passing idols to one another. Like that's amazing. I love seeing that kind of stuff. But like for production, people just discouraging that kind of stuff, I'm just like, big thumbs down, guys. Like, let
Yeah.
the players play, let them do what they want
Yeah.
to do. And, like, it's like with these Street Tribe formats, nothing's really stopping these people from doing that. I mean, if I was in that situation and I really wanted to talk to the other people, like, I would just be like, I'll just walk over there. And
Yeah.
if like a producer stops me, then I won't do it. But if they're not going to stop me, like,
Yeah.
whatever. And so I'd be like, why were you talking to those people? And be like, because I don't want to talk to myself. I don't want to sound crazy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, leave me
Yeah.
alone.
Yeah, I wish they could just like I agree, let the players play. I think it's just interesting television. And I do, it's fun because you have a limited amount of time. Obviously, during a challenge, you might have up to 6 hours, who knows? But it could be a small amount of time in which you have to pass some information. So maybe it's not the full information. Maybe it's not, whatever. So I think it's an interesting thing that I wish they wouldn't discourage. It obviously might just be, logistically it works better to have them placed where they were, but I would hope that they're not discouraging the talking.
Yeah.
But so Tika is going back to tribal council, or so we think. Ratu wins, and Ratu sends Brandon, Danny, and Carolyn to go on a journey. Now, I don't know if you noticed this.
All of the people that opened the cage too.
Oh, interesting. I didn't put that together. That's
Yeah,
very
I was like,
interesting.
wait, all of those people opened the bird cage, which they probably didn't talk about,
Of
obviously, but it was
course, but
something
that's
I
so
noticed. I was
random.
like, that is so like so random.
That is so random. When Ratu was sending the people,
Also,
they
I want to
said,
point out one other thing. Sorry to interrupt, but
no, you're fine.
I don't know how people keep messing up Carolyn's name. They keep calling her Caroline. I'm like,
Oh,
her name's
yeah.
Carolyn. Brandon called her like, yeah, Caroline. I was like, her name's Carolyn. But I love that Carolyn just hasn't been like she. I don't think she cares because she's like, people keep messing up my name the entire time here. At least they
Yeah.
spell it right on pieces of parchment.
I did notice that. I'm like, it's not that hard of a name either. It's pretty straightforward name. But when they chose the people to send, they said we like Danny.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they chose, or I'm sorry, did they say we like Brandon? Whatever. They said
No, they
that they
said
like
they like Danny. That's
we
what
like
Lauren
Danny,
said.
and then it was just, oh, and then I think we're gonna go with Carolyn. It was just Carolyn. And so even go before going into this thing, it was like, oh, we like this person. And then Carolyn almost felt like an afterthought, which I thought was just, I think it was even Heidi that said that. Just an interesting like slip of the tongue. I don't know what it was. It wasn't Heidi, but just very interesting verbiage when you're sending somebody, we like this. I don't know. Interesting. Something that I noticed while that was happening, but
I feel like that's like something you just say to people
I
to make them feel
guess
better.
I
Like,
don't
you know,
know.
you don't want, especially because like there is no consequence for Danny really going because his tribe's not going to tribal and
That's true.
whatnot. So it's just
That's
one of
true.
those things like, you know, oh, like I get a good like we like this person's vibe. Like let's go send them. You know what I mean? Like
Okay.
that kind of stuff.
I get that. I get that. I think I overthink what I say anyway, and so I kind of overthink what other people say. So
I
that's probably
sometimes
what
have to
that is.
play devil's advocate. I'm just like, I'll be thinking these crazy things, and I'll be like, it's probably not. It's like we saw this in
Occam's
Australian Survivor
razor.
that where people are like, oh, why did you pick us for this reward? They're like, I don't know, I just like you people. Like it's
Yeah.
not that
Yeah.
not everything's for strategy and not everything's that deep.
Yeah,
But
sometimes I have to
this
remember that Occam's razor is like sometimes the simplest thing is what's actually happening. It's not always 4D chess.
but this journey is my favorite thing of the entire season. This is what the journey should have always been from the very beginning. They go on this journey and it's a sanctuary. There's no advantage, there's nothing there. They're just eating food and getting to know one another, which I was like, thank you. This is what we've been wanting because, like, every single time they've gone on this journey, they're like, oh, you know, get to know one another. We never hear them talk to one another at all.
Not
Like
ever.
I was like, we only saw this like meaningful thing happen in like 41 and like maybe a little bit in 42, but like in 41 it had like more of an impact with Shan and
Hmm.
Liana really bonding with one another. Whereas like with this, I like all the season before this sanctuary, I was like, none of these people are talking to one another. Like they're not showing anything. And I was like, so to see this was so cool. I was like, oh my gosh, Carolyn, Danny, and Brandon are get to talk to one another. And then it divulged into Danny and Brandon talked to one another while Carolyn was eating.
Oh my gosh. It was just so hard. It was so Carolyn, firstly, Carolyn is everybody in there. Carolyn is just sitting there going like making the wildest faces. And that was literally what I was doing. I could not believe that they were blatantly ignoring, maybe not blatantly, but ignoring her and talking about, oh, you know, people like us, we always get voted out. And Carolyn's like,
What do you mean
yeah, what do
people
you mean
like
us?
us?
What do you mean people like us? People with
It was
like,
so funny.
it was
What do you mean
just
people like us?
it was just so wild to me. I
And
thought she played it so well though when she said when they were like, "Oh, so who are you going to go for?" and she was like, "You know what? I just need allies right now with such a small tribe. I'm not really blah blah blah." I thought that was kind of a good kind of dodge, a good way to say like, "You know what? I'm going to throw
Mhm.
somebody's name under the bus because it's not really well, I need people to work with, not work against me." I thought that she handled that part well. But yeah, that was a wild like 10 minutes.
the wildest part of that whole conversation is Danny and Brandon talking about each other's tattoos. And I'm like, Carolyn literally has a full sleeve down her arm. What are you
She
talking
might
about?
even have
She's
more tattoos than you guys.
literally, I was like, okay, so this isn't like overly edited. Like these people are just straight up ignoring her. And
Yeah.
her confessionals during that whole thing, absolutely amazing. She's like, you know, then we're like, I was like, I'm so excited to go. This is my Carolyn impression. So like, tell me if it's really good. I was so excited to like go on this journey and like, you know, get to finally talk to these people and you know, and then like we get there and then it's just like
That was so good.
they don't even talk to me. Like I'm already gone to them. And you know, it was so funny to watch. And I was just like, she's like, yeah, you know, it'd be a real shame, you know, like she's like being the voice of the audience, just like eating. And then she's just like, and then I loved her final confessional before, like, you know, they left the sanctuary and she's like, it's like, let it be known, I will make the merge. Yes. So
Yes.
good. I loved that. I was like,
She's
yes, Carolyn. you tell
She,
those you tell
you
those guys, you manifest your destiny and you go and get to the
absolutely.
merge.
Absolutely. She literally is I think she's one of the best casting that they've done in recent time.
Absolutely.
Not only because she's great television, she gives such good emotions. She has all that great stuff on her face. She is very good at the game too. I think she has some really great strategy. She's very smart. And she just she's the whole package. And I think that she is very, and she also has great reads on people and how people perceive her. And she knows when she is kind of not in on the conversation, specifically, obviously, with Danny and Brandon, but
And
also just
also
like,
she knows when she's underestimated. Like she could
mhm,
tell like these guys are underestimating her. And she was even listening like, I've pulled off a blind side. I've made relationships. I have an idol nobody knows
mhm.
about. Like they don't realize I'm a power player and like I can make these moves. And I think in the long run that'll work to Carolyn's advantage.
I agree. I agree. And I think, she has played such a good pre-merge game. I'm hoping that she continues on post-merge in kind of she's playing over the radar because of who she is, but her actual game is like under the radar. Do you know what I mean? Where it's like she would be, in my opinion, one of the best winners of recent time because she's so wild and zany where we're getting a great edit of her because producers want to show her. And so because of that, we're hearing her strategy. We're hearing all of this stuff because the producers like having her on the screen. And then she's playing a good game where it's not like as overt as I would say Jesse or maybe even Omar. You know what I mean? If she's able to keep the things that she's doing a little bit more under the radar, and keep up the people like seem to like her, like I mean not just me, but I think like the people on the show, she's with Jam Jam, I think Carson or who was yeah, Carson
Carson. Mm-hmm.
likes her. And so I think that she has an ability if she can just keep being zany and keep being over the top, but keeping her gameplay under the radar, I think she has a really good path to take the whole thing.
Oh yeah, definitely. And we definitely got to talk about Carolyn returns back to Tika, and
Oh yeah.
and then yeah, they're all talking about like, oh yeah, what's the vote? And then Josh is like, well, I'll still be here because I have my idol, and and then Carolyn has literally, I have no idea why Jam Jam didn't ask this. I would have asked the same. She's like, well, can we see your idol? And then this whole segment was so funny to watch
So funny.
because Josh brings it out, and then Jam Jam's like, "These are the beats. Aren't those the beats from Tree Mail?" And Josh is
Yeah.
like, "No, I don't know
No.
what you're." And it's like, "Yeah, they." And then Carolyn's is like, "It's literally the same." He's like, "Yeah, it's literally the same piece of paper you showed me yesterday." Like,
And
it
I
was so. And then I loved Jam Jam's confessional, where it was one of those really organic things. It wasn't him like sitting anywhere, it wasn't like a scene or anything. Like it was just him in camp, just like, Josh, this fake idol is so bad. Like the thing was falling apart in my hands. Like, and he just like he could not contain himself. And it was just one of those very like organic off the cuff confessionals. And I was like, oh my gosh, I absolutely love this. It was
it's
so
so
funny. And I
good.
was just like, oh my God. And then like, I also loved seeing, Jam Jam just kind of falling into this power position, which is so crazy because at the start of the episode, you're like, he could be a dead man walking. Like
Yeah.
Carolyn's probably in the power position. And Jam Jam's put in between Josh and Carolyn, this like with this scramble. And I don't think I've ever been this stressed out about a scramble on a three-person tribe ever. Because it always just like it's always been like really like cut and dry. Like it's pretty obvious who's going.
Yeah.
Even though I would say like I'm pretty sure Josh would have gone this
Yeah.
episode. I think so, but like Jam Jam is a messy gay person, and we love that. I love seeing that. Where he's like, I don't know if I'll keep Carolyn. I don't know if
Yeah.
I'll keep Josh. And I was like, he knows exactly. He watches reality TV. He knows that's exactly what producers want to hear. It's like, oh, I'm not sure. Like,
Yeah.
I'll probably decide at tribal council. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was just pure comedy, and also loved. I also really loved this moment from Carolyn too, when when she comes back and she's like mouthing to Carolyn, she's like, Josh, done. He's going
Yeah.
home. Like
Yeah.
it's over. And then also really loved their one-on-one conversations. Like, I swear to you, like I'm not lying, like I swear on everything. Like,
Yeah.
like this is real. Like this is we're not doing. And also, it's like, well, what if you have an advantage? And it's just like, I don't have an advantage. It's just like, what if?
Yeah.
And I loved this moment too, where he's like, what if? Do you have an idol? She's like, no, I don't have an idol. And it was just one of those moments where, like, and we've seen it so many times in this modern era. Like, people will share their idol as an information to gain an ally, and I'm just like, because people like are like, oh yeah, Carolyn's stupid. Carolyn's not stupid. She has not told a single person about this idol, and guess what? That is how an idol information should be kept. You don't tell
Absolutely.
anybody about your advantages.
Mhm.
Period.
Yep, absolutely.
And
And I
it's
think it's super
just
smart for her to
so
still
much
keep
fun.
that. It was so good, and it was very smart of her to keep that close to the chest because obviously she had an idol the whole time. Uh, yes, she didn't get one at the sanctuary, but she's had one. And so yeah, I'm just like I'm so happy that she kept that to her. I'm also it was interesting to me that like the moment that Brandon and Danny brought up Josh as like oh yeah, we got to keep us muscular guys, whatever. And she was like, Josh has got to go. He's got to go because I think she now has a vendetta against Brenda and Denny, as do I, honestly. Am now against them
Which
because
is
I
a
am for Carolyn.
yeah, which is a shame because I really like Danny and
I
whatnot,
like
and
them
like I
both.
like him. I liked Danny, like, I liked him a lot this season. And then it's just like seeing him like grow out. I was like, oh no. Like I was like, oh
I
God,
I've
why?
done
I was just like,
one meat tray alliance this year. I can't do two. I can't do two. I can't do two. I've done my one. I've done my one. We're done. We're done. That's it.
literally
That's all we're
no,
doing.
no, no bros, no like meat trays. Like we're not for it. Like on this
Especially not
podcast,
on
I'm
this
not.
season.
No, 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 no. Especially not on this season. It's like Carolyn did where they're like, and those two just went together. It was so funny.
It was so
I
good.
was like, usually people do this, not
No,
this, but okay.
she is just so amazing.
And
Okay,
I
so
loved it.
now we get to obviously there was a lot of scrambling, there was a lot of talking, and then they see a boat come onto the beach. That's never a good sign. It's either
What are
meaning
you talking
someone
about?
is.
That's a great sign. Like
I
that's a
guess for
great
them,
sign.
I guess
That's a
it was
great
a great
sign.
sign. Jeff comes on saying, and even before Jeff even said anything, they said, "Is it Matthew?" They knew they could see that
Mhm.
Matthew was in a lot of pain. He was sitting out challenges, so they knew that Matthew was going to be going. And Jeffrey was like, "Yep, he was in a lot of pain. He had to opt out or whatever the verbiage he said. He was medically evacuated essentially." And then Ian posted my favorite bit from the whole episode.
But I am sorry that he went home. That
I'm sorry that we're home.
is,
It's like
I would have reacted
me,
the exact same way. Like I would have been like,
absolutely.
I'd be like, wow, it really sucks that we went home, but I'm so glad we're not going to tribal.
Yeah, it was so good. It's such a good gif. It's such just a good sound on TikTok. Like it's such a good bit, but all because it's so real. It is so like obviously you're sad that Matthew went home, especially for that reason. But in a game where it's every person for themselves, obviously you're going to be happy because Josh probably would have gone home. And Carolyn literally says afterwards, yeah, I was
in
going to
a
vote for
joke,
you in a
in a
joking
joking
way.
way, but she was being serious. Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah,
vote.
yeah,
It's like, well, it's like, why are you excited? Because I was gonna vote you out.
yeah.
And then
So,
Carolyn's the only person who was like, I'm kind of bummed that we didn't go to tribal because I wanted to get rid of Josh. And so,
mhm,
like, near the
mhm.
end of the episode, it was like definitely very interesting. It was super, I'm always for the person like, and for that mindset, like, if someone has to leave the game and like, I'd be like, that's one less person, that's one step closer. Like, that's like, keep it positive,
Yep,
find the silver lining. And,
absolutely.
at the end of this episode, there's a lot of like stuff in the air to like predict how this merge is going to go. Like, I'm
Yeah.
definitely excited to see how this merge is going to go. Part of me is hoping it won't be an earn the merge, but I don't think it'll deviate from that because that's
Yeah.
what it's been for the last two
Yes,
seasons. But I liked how it was done in 43. And
me
so,
too.
and because also this merge is going to be 12 people, we won't have to have like a uneven number of like,
Right.
and hopefully we won't have like someone voted out in the merge that doesn't make the jury. Like I don't like
Yeah.
that. That's not I don't like it that much, but there are times where I'm just like the person who gets voted out first of the merge is like them like barely plays the game. You know what I mean? Like not
Yeah.
as much, and like they don't get to see everything. So
Right. Right. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I think the merge is going to be it's going to be very interesting, gameplay. I'm excited to see how everything went. But I just also want to say, like, as much as we rag on the producers, as I typically do on the editors, I think this episode really shows what Survivor could be if we didn't have a million advantages all the time. If we didn't have,
Yes.
we that is I think so I was able to I went to an RHAP live event on Wednesday and
I saw, I was so jealous.
it was so much fun. It was so much fun. But every single person I talked to, every single person was like, this was such a good episode of Survivor because we got to see the relationships. We got to watch people strategize, get to know each other, think about, everything. And that is what Survivor fans love. And it wasn't just like a couple people that I talked to and then some people, it was every single person was like, wow, this was a great episode. I'm sad Matthew left, but we didn't have to go to tribal council. So we got all essentially 45 minutes of the episode watching these people get to know each other, strategize, talk, a little bit of the immunity challenge, but other than that, it was all interpersonal relationships, and every single person I talked to loved it, loved it. And so I just want to say
Mhm.
props to the editors, props to the producers who let us have one episode that was essentially void of any advantages, void of any kind of extra little things around, and we just got to see players play, which was just amazing.
Yeah, I think someone said on a podcast, was like, I wonder if like you're like, some people would call this like a filler episode of Survivor or something like that because we didn't see someone go home. They're like, I wonder if they should like do that in the future or something like that. Like have like give us some content that's like filler content or something like that. To, fill in, you know, but I mean like they kind of post like the deleted scenes and whatnot, which, like
Hmm.
I guess is like the closest thing we'll get to that. But I'm not for that, but I do like the idea and that sentiment of like we should be getting more of this. This episode felt like Survivor went back to its roots.
Yeah.
No gimmicks, no advantages, no craziness, like just people being people interacting with one another. And that's what we love to see. And that's what I am a fan of. Is like, that's why this is called Survivor Social. And this episode could not have been more social than
It
anything we've seen
was.
this season.
It was amazing. And honestly, like I mean, we've talked about this a lot, but the social game is one of the most, if not the most important aspect of the game. We've seen people win solely on their social strategy, or their social gameplay and just getting to know people. And I mean, I even saw on the Australian version at the final tribal council, I won't say there was a question, I won't say who was posed to, but somebody was like, can you tell me what my favorite hobby was? Can you tell me what this is? And the person couldn't answer. And so I'm not saying that that person would have won, but the social aspect is so important, and it's important for us, the viewers, to be able to watch the episode and understand how people line up, and who gets along with who and who doesn't. And that's an important context that I think a lot of times we don't really get. And so I just wanted to say
Yeah,
thank you to the people who edited this episode, and for making it something so enjoyable for all of us to watch.
I absolutely agree with that. And so I saw a clip from like RuPaul's Drag Race, and there was like people on a podcast or something, and they were talking like to the people hating on the like episode, and I was like, this is how Jeff definitely acts. Like when people don't like the show, it's like to the people hating on Survivor, of course you're watching. Like, like he's definitely like, I don't care. You're watching the show. Like, why do I care? And I'm just
Yeah.
like, Jeff definitely has that mentality of like, if it's a good or a bad episode, of course you're watching. Like, duh.
He and wait, I will always watch. There is no way that I
Yeah.
won't. I mean, that's not true, but
Well,
there are probably some ways that I won't.
that last season, I probably should have stopped watching.
Um, but we do have some questions that I promised that we would get to at the end of the episode. So we
Yay!
do have a couple of questions. So we have one that we got from TikTok. This person's name is Kason. Their at is at Killin_it523. So shout out to them. They write, what do you think Jamie and Carson will do with their dead idols? People know about it now, so is there any way for them to use it to their advantage? What do you think?
I don't think there's anything you can do really, because I think because Carolyn also shared that information, which was also like a really good idea to do. Like them being like, oh, well, these people don't have idols. And like, I don't think there's really anything you can do to pass it off like as an idol. There's just nothing you can do, especially like, having these idols and whatnot. And, like, I just don't think there's anything you can really do at that point because people now know. Like Danny
Yeah.
knows, Brandon knows, Carolyn knows, Carson and Jamie both know, Josh knows, Jam Jam
Mhm.
knows. Like that's like six people, right?
Yeah, that
Like
is.
six people know about this. That's half the cast. And like,
My question is though, do you think that they are going to, obviously they know it expires, right? But I don't, did Josh
mhm.
tell anybody that it expires?
Carolyn knows it expired. She read the note.
Carolyn, oh, she read the note. Okay. So then yes. So
Remember,
then Carolyn knows.
she knows, and then Jam Jam knows Josh's idol is a fake, and he already played his one idol. So it's
Right.
like, yeah,
My,
I
because
don't think it's, you know what? I know what they can do with it. They can keep it as a nice souvenir. That's what they
yeah,
can do with it.
they can try to do something with it, but I feel like it's not going to work. Like I feel like if they do
No,
something, it's just not going to end up
that'd be like
actually.
be doing too big brain strategy. That'd be like
Yeah,
you
exactly.
overanalyzing this. You'd be like, what can I do with this expired idol that everybody knows about?
Yep.
It's like and I'd
Yep.
be like, Tegwyth, you
Just
can't do anything with it. Just keep it and take
stop,
it home with
sweetie.
you.
Sweetie, stop. Just stop. Yeah, that's accurate. It's almost like, yeah, exactly. Exactly that. Um, so yeah, I feel like they'll just have worst case scenario. I'm thinking if one of them actually finds a real idol, they could play their real idol and keep the note and use it. But like that's not even gonna come into like there's a very small chance that that'll actually happen because who knows. So I do think they have a very nice souvenir.
It's because you just mentioned the real idol. Because Matthew went home with his idol. Do you think they're going to replant it?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't think
I
they.
think they, I think they will because they replanted it after Brandon played it, which I didn't think they were going to do because
That's
But
true.
I think
That is true.
because it's the merge, they may not, but who knows?
Yeah, I think so. I think there was a big theory on whether or not Matthew actually left with his idol. And I'm 90% sure he did because I think on an exit interview, that's what kind of came out of that. But I think so I don't think he like handed it off to somebody. They didn't pull like a Dwight and Jesse kind of thing where he handed it off and whatever. I don't think that happened. But I do think they'll rehide it at some point. Like I think there will be another idol introduced into the game, and I think if it's the merge, I think it'll just be like a merge idol. I don't think it's going to be like in the birdcage. I think it'll just be hidden.
Yeah, but I have to say, like now that we're entering the merge, Birdcage twist might be one of my favorites because I think it production and the show and Jeff are probably so happy that the Birdcage went in three completely different ways.
Yep.
Like Brandon opens it in front of everybody, and then everybody realizes there's a real and a fake. And then Danny does what pretty much like the script for the birdcage was player finds both fake and real idol, puts rehides puts fake idol back in cage, rehides the key, someone else finds it and finds a fake idol. And then Carolyn does like something keeps both of them, does something similar, but like in a better way, where she does
Yep.
the little X, which I
Yep.
liked. But
I did
yeah,
too.
I think the birdcage twist was really unique and really interesting. And it was fun. It was really fun to watch. It was fun TV. And, you know, I don't like the fake idol part of it
I
that
don't either.
much, but I did like that Survivor production brought back that the real idols look different from one another.
Hmm.
That's the thing that I liked. They brought that in Cambodia, and I really liked that because like no two idols look the same, so
Yeah,
each one is unique. And I think it'll be interesting, but I liked the birdcage. That's probably one of the highlights of the pre-merge is just how that worked out, and
I agree.
we'll see how it affects everything long term.
I totally agree. And I think it's interesting also that Matthew still has a legacy in this game where Matthew is no longer in the game. Obviously, he had to leave. But his fake idol that he gave to Jamie is still in the game. And the only person that knew that idol was fake is no longer in the game. So I'm super interested to see how that's going to play out because Jamie has an idol that is fake and she doesn't know it. And the only person who knows it is no longer in the game. So that is very interesting to me as well. And I'm excited
Yeah,
to see how that plays out.
yeah, me too.
So we have one other question. We got an email question. Amanda wanted to ask, Was Josh's fake idol the worst idol ever created?
Okay. I would probably say yes, because
I
like
mean, comparing it to
I
the stick,
okay, that's
Ozzy
bad.
stick.
Okay, that's bad, but like that's funny.
Yeah, yeah,
Like Ozzy at least took time to find a stick and like whittle that
yeah,
himself. But yeah, that was really bad. But it's just because Josh's fell apart. That's the thing that
yeah.
got me. Like it wasn't well constructed. It wasn't well executed. It was like at least Ozzy's fake stick like was believed by the dumbest person on the in the game.
Yeah.
That's what made it funny. But it's just like I think Josh's is probably one of the worst fake idols we've seen in like the new era
I
or like in the
agree.
new school Survivor. Like
I agree.
no one believes that's real. And I think the reason why like it could almost have been pulled off is because this is my biggest gripe. I'm an artist. I like to draw, I like to paint, I like to do all that kind of stuff. The artistic integrity of idols has diminished over and over and over again as the seasons have gone on. And I really
Hmm.
hate that. I really don't like that the show is like, we want our real idols to look as fake as possible. Like,
Possible.
and I just think to myself, like, who wants to go home with that?
Yeah. Yeah.
I literally have said, like, if I get on Survivor and I find one of those idols and it looks like a string of beads, and I'd be like, wow, production's really not stepping it up this year. Or I might just be like, I just feel like this is the idol. It looks like shit. Like this looks terrible. And then and then they'll be like, they'll have to cut it. They'll be like, wow, he was really talking mad trash about our idols. I'm like, yeah, because it looks
Yeah.
like crap.
Yeah.
I would honestly like I would never do it, but it'd be funny if I was just like, yeah, I'll just give this to somebody else because I hate this so much.
That would be so funny. I'm taking a stand, and this is the stand that I'm taking, and I will not be a part. I will not be party to
Unless you
this.
get a unless you give me a better idol, I'm giving it to someone else.
That would be so funny. That would be amazing. That would be so iconic. But we've come to the well, so let me just say before I finish the questions. If you have any questions, if you a listener have any questions about this week, last week, past Survivor seasons, Australian Survivor, whatever it is, please email us. It is survivorsocialpod@gmail.com. You can also, obviously, I will read, I get questions on my TikTok. So if you have any questions that you want me to read, please comment on my TikToks at underscore, wait, what's my, Survivor underscore simulation. So sorry. And I will read those out as well. So we love to hear your questions, your thoughts, all of that stuff. We've come to the point of the show where we award two big awards to
Mhm.
some players. The first one is this week's social butterfly. So Ian, as the guest, you can go ahead and start. Who do you think is this week's social butterfly, or who deserves that award, and
I
why?
think I think Jam Jam obviously deserves an award for me because he started off this episode as someone that like was easily disposable, and we thought like a lot of people were like Carolyn's in the driver's seat for this vote, and then as the episode kept going on, we see that Jam Jam was the one in the middle, and he was now back in this power position, and he was able to socialize with Josh, and some and like kind of reconnect with Carolyn in what way. Like it seemed like Jam Jam would have been the kingmaker if they went to this tribal council. And I think that's really impressive, especially because he had felt like he was on the bottom at that point. So I have to give it to Jam Jam.
I actually think so. My answer changed from the beginning of the episode to the end, and I'm going to actually agree with you. You changed my mind. I think I'm going to go with Jam Jam as well. Jam Jam is just so great to watch on the screen, and I just think that he is able to make connections. He's able to gain the trust of somebody who, or he's able to trust somebody who he wasn't able to trust prior. All of this stuff that he is able to do because of his social game. He is so great at just being. He's just so kind. He's just so fun to watch on the TV. And so I think that he really turned his position around as someone who was out of the vote. And then I do think you are right. I think that he would have been the driver of the vote if it would have ended up being like that. So I think I'm going to go with Jam Jam as well. And then we have our second award of the episode, which is the driver of the social struggle bus. And so Ian, do you have any thoughts on that? Do you know who is going to be the driver today?
It's probably gonna be for like the third time in a row. Josh is the driver, the back seat. He is the bus at this point.
Yeah.
Like he is the struggle bus. Like as Omer said last week, like if you're gonna make up a lie, make up a good one. But like
Mm.
Josh, your fake idol is just terrible. Like, oh my gosh, it was bad. It was really, really bad. And he's just not doing well socially. I still think he thinks that his tribe likes him.
Hmm.
And I think that's gonna bite him in the ass. And my prediction is that Josh might be the merge boot because
Yeah.
Carolyn doesn't want him around. I don't think Jam Jam wants him around particularly. And then all of Soka doesn't want him around. And how many is that? Oh, that's six. That's half the
Yeah.
entire cast. Like, I don't think Josh really has a chance at this point. And I feel really bad for you guys at the Survivor Now podcast, all picking Josh as your winner pick,
Not
which
me. My
I
winner
know
pick's
you
already
did.
out. My winner pick's
I
already
know
out.
I know you were the only one that didn't pick Josh, but I'm just like, wow, all of you guys picking the same winner pick. It's like you have to put your eggs in different
I
baskets, people.
mean, I know. Diversify the portfolio. Like, what's going
I
on
picked
here?
Carolyn from the beginning. I didn't even read that much preseason stuff. I was just like, I like her vibe. I think she's kooky. I think she's different. I think she's like something new, and she's my winner pick. And like, I'm just like
And great winner pick.
seeing that Randy, Abraham, who
And
else chose
Josh.
Josh, and Josh chose Josh.
I
I'm just
know.
like, I'm like side eye, massive side eye. Are you
Yeah.
sure about that now? You want to change it?
That's so funny. Um, so this is actually, I'm actually gonna not go with Josh as the driver this week for my pick.
Wow. Okay.
I know. And this is mainly because I think I just saw a large change in another person's social, or two people. It's tied for me. So I'm sorry, Randy, when you put this on the social medias, it's gonna be three drivers this week. I think the sanctuary between Brandon and Danny was a real bad spot on their social game. You're supposed to get to know each other. You're supposed to make bonds with everyone there. Even if you feel more kinship to one person than the other, I think that obviously this is Survivor is a social game. You need to make it feel like everyone is here. The fact that, they were like, oh, the people like us always get voted out, and
I was just
Carolyn's
about to
sitting
say
right
this.
there.
I was about to
What?
say, like, what do you mean? People like us, Tegwyth?
People like,
Like, what do you,
yeah,
like, yeah, people like us don't make it this far. Like, what are you talking about?
like
It would have
that.
been
The
fun.
fact
It
that
would have
they
been
were,
really funny if they had doubled down on it, like even harder. Like, yeah, people like us, Carolyn, that like aren't big physical threats, and then like openly and Brandon openly saying to Carolyn, "Well, you're not going to be a threat because you're not that strong in challenges." Like,
yeah. So, it's just like that right there was just such a as good as their social games might be at their own tribes, like this was such an indicator of like not being able to manage what's going on right in front of you and not seeing that obviously somebody's being left out of the conversation. So literally, like literally being left out of the conversation. This she has the biggest tattoo of everyone, but they're the only ones that have the tattoos. Nope, there are the only people. Nobody else has tattoos. Actually, they invented tattoos. Those two, they are the only ones. Whoever has tattoos. So,
they
like
gave
to
themselves
me,
tattoos on the island. What are you
yeah,
talking about?
pick and pokes. They gave them to each other. That was their bonding. So I just like that was so egregious to me that I think it has to be both. I couldn't even choose one of them. It has to be both of them because it just is like, come on, guys. Oh my God. Come on. So while I don't think their social games are in the whole maybe as not as
Josh.
good as yeah, not as good as some other people, I think that it's just like that was such a bad spot and it
It
was
was a bit.
so bad the one bad apple ruins the bunch, and so it's gonna have to be them for me today.
It was a really bad look. I completely like. I validate your pick.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yours is valid. So much so, like it was just one of those moments where like I am like getting flashbacks to like dudes in the locker room talking about bro stuff, and I'm just sitting there like, wow, that's so interesting. Like,
Hmm.
like
Mm.
it very much felt like one of those moments where it's like I'm the third wheel, except I'm not even a wheel. I'm a spare tire.
Oh, yeah. Honestly, that's what this whole thing felt like. Felt like it was like a spare tire that we can use in case one of the other tires blows out. But she's there. All right, now that we're wrapping up with the episode, Ian, thank you so much for joining me and talking about, everything Survivor social. But let's talk about you. Where can we find you? Where are your socials so that we can maybe ask questions, talk about the episode, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so my main Instagram account is ian.fruity, and that's spelled IAN dot FRUITY. And that's where my main account is. And then I have my art account linked on there. And I also have a Survivor Instagram account. But if you DM me, I can message you, from there. If you want to talk all things Survivor, definitely I will talk on my main account. I'll talk wherever you want to talk, I will talk about it.
Awesome.
Yeah, this was so
yeah.
much fun to do. I'm so excited. I can't wait to hear when it comes out, which sounds so crazy, but I will listen to myself talk.
I mean,
I'm very Benjamin Coach Wade in that way. I will listen to myself talk, and you know what? I mean, there's some people that have played Survivor that I haven't watched my season. I'm be like, no, I'm watching my season. What are you talking about? I will watch myself on TV. I will listen to myself talk on a TikTok, on 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 a podcast. It'll be interesting. I can't wait to hear the final product. This has been an absolute blast. I loved when we've been talking on lives and whatnot about Australian Survivor. We definitely got to do another one because the season's been wrapped and we have so much to talk about.
So much.
Yeah, it was an amazing experience. I absolutely love doing this. It's talking to a nice, good friend who gets my sense of humor and is all right with me interrupting her at some point.
All the time.
I still need to work out, but I'm
sometimes
just
you gotta
so
get the
happy.
thoughts out.
Yes. I'm that person. If I forget something and I'll be thinking about it and it's I'm wasting time thinking about it, and I'm just I gotta say it sometimes, and that's just how my brain works.
Exactly the same thing. But it was honestly such a blast to have you on here. I cannot wait to see next week's episode. It's going to be a lot of fun. But please, if you have any questions for the pod, whatever, reach out to us. We would love to read them on the show. Just talk about Survivor with you all. Also, if you haven't already, if you're listening on or watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe to Survivor Now. And if you are listening on Spotify, definitely give us a rating. Hopefully it is 5, but if it's not, that's okay. No, it's not.
Wait. This is going to be on YouTube? This is going to be on YouTube?
Is that okay?
I had no idea.
Oh shit, I'm sorry.
No idea it's gonna be on YouTube. I thought only the main show or something got put on YouTube.
That's so funny. I can probably I can talk to them. I mean, everything looks good on this end.
You can leave. Thank you. You can fully leave this in. Fully leave this in. It's so funny. I was like, wait, what? I thought it was only
so
for the main recap episodes. I was like, wait, YouTube? What are you talking about? I thought you only put snippets or something. I know Randy and Abraham do it on YouTube and with that stuff, but I was like, I didn't know Survivor Social was also on YouTube. So I'll definitely have to watch that.
That's so funny. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you all so much for listening and hanging out with us. Always a blast to talk Survivor, especially with you all listening. So thank you so much, everybody. Bye.